what are some of your questions when people say get out of debt? What comes to your mind? So for those listening, debt is a 4-letter word for most people. There are many people in my position, so-called financial gurus, who say live totally debt-free. And there's other people who say cut up your credit cards. Get out of debt. And a lot of people are saying cut up your credit cards. I think that's really ridiculous because a credit card is not the problem. In fact, I love my credit cards. I don't know how anybody could get along today without a credit card. But the credit card isn't the problem. It's lack of financial education is the problem. If you're going to be financially intelligent today, you have to know there's good debt and bad debt. And simply put, good debt makes you rich and bad debt makes you poor.
The entire currency supply, all of the dollars in existence, require debt. You can't have a dollar without debt. A dollar is just an IOU. It's borrowed into existence either by the government creating a bond which promises to pay interest, you've got to pay out of future taxes, or people create currency by taking out a loan at the bank, fractional reserve lending. Every month there's a payment due on those dollars that you create.
I've seen people walk into my office that make $150,000 a year, but they have $250,000 in credit card debt. Let's face it, we live in a credit society and you do have to have credit. And we have to learn how to survive and thrive in our credit economy that we are. But people are walking in and they have this bad debt. They're asking, what do we do with it? Well, number one, you try to pay off the bad debt so you can invest in good debt.
And the other thing about debt, there's good debt and bad debt. So this is going to be the lesson today, is there's good debt and bad debt. And if you only have bad debt, which I classify student loan debt as bad debt, the main reason it's bad debt is because it's the worst possible type of debt. You see, if I get into trouble as a businessman with debt, I can declare bankruptcy and I'm clean. But the trouble with student loan debt, you can't do that. It hangs around your neck for the rest of your life. So if you're a student, you shouldn't take on student loan debt unless you absolutely 100% guaranteed that you will commit to graduating. So that's part of the financial intelligence. And the way we got out of debt and we got financially free so quickly was we knew the difference between good debt and bad debt. So what this is about is getting out of bad debt. So with this process, you can get completely out of debt, including your house and cars, if you follow it step by step. Tell yourself the truth. And I think that's one of the hardest things I had to do because, Kim had never met a financial disaster like me before. She couldn't believe anybody could be driving a Mercedes and living in a nice hotel right on the shores of Diamond Head and be flat broke, but also deeply in debt. And I kept pretending I was rich, and that was, I was faking it till I make it, and, I was praying to God and Jesus and Buddha and hoping that money would come by and pretending I had no debt, and I was looking good and, eating in the best restaurants and flaunting the cash, but I was flat broke. You can fake your girlfriends, but you can't fake your wife. And so the first thing I had to do with Kim was sit down and eventually tell her the truth, that I wasn't as rich as I looked.
Well, it's true. You've got to tell yourself the truth, because if you have a goal of where you want to go, you're not going to be able to get there if you don't know where you are. Yeah. So basically, it's telling yourself the truth, not lying to yourself, not pretending anymore. Here's the hard facts. Here's where I am.
And all you guys out there who are deeply in debt and all this, I'd like to say this is probably the most important first real step you can go through, or a major commitment. And that is hire a bookkeeper. I talk about a bookkeeper as part of your team. And there was times, I was just trying to do my own books, and, when I'm stressed out and embarrassed and upset that I owe so much money, I would not really confront the truth. Plus I'm messy. I'm not very detail oriented. So Kim and I finally went out, and my rich dad talked to me, and we're talking over with him. He says, "Do you have a bookkeeper?" And I said, "No, because it costs too much money." And he says, "Look, rich people have bookkeepers, poor people don't. You have got to keep accurate records. And you're not supposed to do that, because your job is to make money, not to keep track of the money."
Stop accumulating the bad debt.
Yes, and what that meant was sometimes you might have to make a little bit of sacrifice. And when Kim and I moved from Hawaii to California and we went homeless right away, and we were living in the garage basement apartment, there was sometimes I had to run up, we had no money, and so Kim had like $2 to get through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday till I came home Sunday night and hopefully got paid for what I was doing. So I want you to tell them how you survived on $2.
Well, first of all, gas costs, so I didn't want to use up a lot of gas and drive to a lot of places. And there was this little taco stand that I could walk to. It was about 3 blocks from where we lived. And so I'd walk down this little taco stand, get my little cheese and chicken quesadilla, and it cost me $1. And then I'd walk back and I'd have my quesadilla. And the next day I'd walk down and have a second quesadilla, and that's $2. And that's basically how we would survive at times.
Right. And Kim is, she has a great figure and all that, but she does like to eat. But she was able to make 4 meals out of 2 for $2, and she survived. And I'd come home, Sunday night from a trip or either Monday morning. And then we had some money again, but then we went through the process of first getting out of bad debt rather than going out to a restaurant and sucking down some $100 bottle of wine and eating some prime rib and stuff. So we lived pretty frugally during this period of time till we got our feet on the ground and built a new business. You've really got to pay yourself first. Please hear me. Poor and middle-class people pay themselves last. So the hard part was we would take off, and I said, it doesn't have to be 30%. Let's say even if it's $10, $10, $10 per month, at least you get in the habit of doing that. And then you pay your bills, and you'd be surprised how smart you become if you have to pay those bills, because look, your piggy banks don't scream at you, but the people who want their money do. So once you pay yourselves first, the people that scream at you kind of give you the motivation to go out and find some more money.
Make a list of all, and the key word is all, the debt that you owe.
I had so much debt I didn't want to tell her, and I kept sneaking off and paying bills here and sneaking around there, and finally she says, because I didn't want to tell her how bad the Titanic was that I ran aground and called my last business. And finally we had to sit down and I had to write down all the investors I owed money to, all the friends and family I owed money to, and everybody I felt bad about, that I was still not paying and things like this. So she had me sit down and write. And even, the credit card companies, they get really nasty when you don't pay them. So I had to show her the envelopes I was receiving from the angry credit card companies and all this stuff, and basically tell the truth and face the music. To determine the order for paying off each debt.
You're going to start with the smallest circled number you have. That means you're going to pay that debt off first. And people often say, I want to make one comment. This does not take into account the interest rate on the debt. And shouldn't I pay off my biggest interest rate first? Don't we want to get the one with the highest interest rate off the books first? You want to see a result quickly. You want to know that this formula works. So we're going to take the shortest debt that you have, the one that you can pay off the quickest. And when you see that result, when you see that paid off, you can see the formula working, you have a win, it'll encourage you to move forward. So that's why we start with the smallest number. Okay, so also when you pay off that first debt, now that you have this visual diagram in front of you, take a big red marker and put an X through it. And that one is off your charts, it's done, celebrate, it's time to move on to debt number 2. Now, here's what you do. Debt number 1 you've been paying, so you go to debt number 2.
Poof!
Done.
Gone.
Gone. Celebrate. Yep. So you cross that one off. Now you move on to debt number 3, and you'd keep going through this process, adding every time to your new debt the amount you were paying from the last debt.
Obviously, this is not going to work if you pay off one debt and you go back into debt, or that you pay off 1 or 2 and then you go back to making the minimum payments. What you're doing is you're laser focusing on wiping out each one of these debts or loans that you own.